What's up, YouTube? Thanks so much for coming by Logical, Plausible, Probable. In this video, you're going to see the epic annihilation of a atheist slash evolution activist in an after show, and let's just say he ends up claiming to be tired and runs away as he was getting annihilated. Now, before we get going, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and make sure you click the little bell icon. Otherwise, you will not get notified on a regular basis when new videos go live.
Well, the next big debate's going to be, you ready for it? John Maddox versus David Naff. Whew! Pay-per-view event.
Whoa!
Hey, Sean.
David's been trying to get that one for a while, but David, I have to ask you, man. I have to ask you. So, you spewed a lot of talking points tonight, and I find them very entertaining because we hear them all the same thing from the same people, but never real answers to the counterpoints about the structure formation requirements for the expression of the supposed new information. So, for example, with prokaryotes, if you don't have the promoters in the specific linear position, you cannot have gene expression.
Okay.
So how do you remotely think it is plausible that all of the promoters end up in the exact specific location from a linear perspective before you even account for the sequential requirements for the gene? How do you remotely explain that happening through undirected process at all? Like, that makes no logical sense whatsoever.
All right, and sure, and I think this will be a good time. I would actually really like to do a whole stream on this just with you when I'm not so fried. Would that be okay? I'm not trying to bail or anything with it, or trying to duck and run. But
okay, okay, that's fine. Well, let me ask you this direct question then. Do you?
Sure.
And this, you don't have to get into detail with this. Just I want to know if you know this. Can we have a gene sequence, a gene that is quote supposedly considered a duplicate, but actually has different outcome based on intron differences that influence alternative splicing?
So again, so a duplicate mutation that duplicates the
no. We have a duplicate gene sequence, right? Up until recently, it's considered it's just a duplicate, right? It's a copy.
Yeah.
But then we're finding out that actually turns out the end outcome is different based on intron differences. So we have been for years have been saying, oh, this is just a duplicate because the exons are the same. What we're discovering now is that there's variable outcome of that. The exon sequence is the same. The introns are different. And the introns are literally altering the outcome of that sequence expression. So the point where I'm going with all this is, one, do you know about this? And two, if you do, how do you explain that in the relation to evolution relying on gene duplication and like modification from there, being a fundamental requirement for your theory, but you have to have the quote unquote junk in order for the variation to happen?
That is actually an excellent question. To answer the first one, I am not familiar with that. Would you actually be willing to send me some links to a study where I can actually read some of that?
I've got papers on it in my folder.
Okay, sure. Can you email me the?
It's in the folder.
So I can link
it's in the folder. Everything's foldered.
Yeah. If you can send that to me, that would be fantastic.
The link is in the description of my channel.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said my folder link is in my about page on my channel.
Okay, so hold on, logical, possible, probable. Let me just see here.
But I guess what I'm really wanting to get a kind of answer from you is, like, do you recognize the significance of what I just said in terms of how this is a major challenge to evolutionary theory?
Not right off the top of my head, to be perfectly honest, but that's probably because my brain is completely fried right now. So I'm looking at your about page. I just don't. Where is the folder you said?
There's a link that says "for the annoying people." I don't mean that about you, but it's just in general.
Okay, for the annoying people. There we go. I will definitely take a look at that, and maybe Standing for Truth and can get us set up where we can talk about one of the topics or whatever.
Yeah, potentially. Like I said, the whole point I'm making here is I'm not trying to play a gotcha game. I'm trying to just make the point that all I hear from you and have heard from you for quite some time is the exact same talking points over and over again. And I mean, the Dover trial, dude, is so old and outdated with all of the knowledge that's now known. I mean, that ruling was stupid. Like, you're relying on a non-scientist judge ruling to somehow be the ultimate defense of evolution, number one. But number two, the ridiculous amount of new variable requirements that have been discovered in the last 5 years, let alone since that trial, absolutely are paradigm shifts in our understanding of biology in and of itself. So I really don't understand why you and all the other evolutionary biology activists run around relying on that when, to be blunt, in my opinion, it just showcases ignorance of reality.
So I guess the point that I brought it up is that the chromosome. So excuse me. You can tell that I'm starting to get really drained now. That even Dr. Michael Behe himself, this is from the judge. This is what actually happened in the trial. Simply didn't have any answer for this. So I'm just really
okay. So you do realize that Behe has like done a formal counter to Miller, right?
I have not. I know he has done it, but I have not read it or seen it.
Okay, so you're relying on outdated propaganda then.
No, I mean, I would like to read it
because there is a formal response to it. Is the point I'm making. So again, to my point about evolution activists such as yourself on YouTube running around making this argument, and you don't even know that there's been a direct counter by the person you're claiming had no answer.
Right.
And it's like, I mean, we get down to, I mean, Tangelo was making the point tonight of like, cool, you got a Rolls Royce and you can like take it down to a Volkswagen. Does it still have the same fundamental requirements? And it's just like, I've got a drill. Cool. I can put different drill bits in it. Okay. Does that mean that the fact that I have a motor that can use drill bits, does that mean that that motor is going to turn into a car engine? I mean, that's like the argument that's being made by the Millers, because you still have to get down to the fundamental three-dimensional structure, which Salvador talks about a lot, and you have to account for the schematics. It's amazing.
Time out. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I need a little help with. George wants to get in. Is there a way I could send him the private link? I don't mind posting it, but I would like.
I send it to him. It's just a link on the browser where StreamYard.com, and there comes a sequence of letters, and that's the one which you will copy to the.
Salvador,
I can send it to. Okay, go ahead, John.
I'll send it to George.
Okay, so there's not a private. I don't mind giving it public because I can always toss people that I don't want. But it's thanks. I really apologize there, John. I didn't want to.
Oh, it's no worries. I was going on a long-winded diatribe.
So I didn't mean to derail everything. Oh my goodness, profuse apologies. So someone, I'm in a chat discussion with a bunch of people there. So it's really great that you all are here because I don't think I could multitask.
Yeah, that is not a problem. But I would recommend
talk and listen at the same time.
Sal, one of the things I would recommend that you do is actually post a link to the StreamYard in the discussion forum, and then you can just monitor who you want in and who you don't want in. I think that will probably be the most straightforward way for you to do so.
Oh, say that again. I missed that, David.
So copy and paste the link and make the link public, but you can control who is actually going in on the stream and who's not. So that's probably the easiest way to do it.
Okay, thank you.
So John, one of the things I was kind of bringing up, one of the things that I kind of like to do it backwards, like take from the biodiversity that we have now and try and trace backwards. That I think has been my approach. You and I both agree with speciation and all that. So the question that I was trying to ask on Tangelo, and one of the things I want to ask you is, where does the common ancestry break down? For example, how do we know if two organisms are related to each other, or how do we know if two clades are related to each other from this level, working backwards?
I'm going to flip that on you and say, what level of assumption is made on there being a common ancestor for all of them anyway?
All right. Well,
I mean, let's think about this for a second. What do you found the supposed relationships on?
all right. Well, one thing we could do without even looking at genetics or morphology is looking at
no. Genetics is the only one that matters. The rest of it is complete BS because any other attempt to prove evolution through homology or morphology is a joke because it's all dependent on genetic information, whether it be genetic code, epigenetic variation or variables and coding, and which Angela talked about tonight. Those are the things that result in what you're trying to rely on. I'm about to bring up here. So from a genetic standpoint, what is it?
Okay, well, one things that we do is what I brought up with the cats. We can look at the cat DNA and figure out when they diverged, and both evolutionists and creationists would agree that the cats share a common ancestor.
And what is the? And I'm not arguing with that. But what portion of the genome is being looked at for this? That's 100% fundamental, supposedly, into determining all of the relationships.
I'm not sure right off the top of my head, but that being said, we do know that.
For phylogenetics, are they looking at the coding genes? Yes or no?
I believe so. That being said, hold on. That several of the cats, such as the lions and the tigers, can interbreed and produce infertile offspring. So before we even look at the genetics, we can tell that there has to be some type of relationship between them, even by the strictest definition of kind by the creationists.
What does that have to do with evolutionary theory in the context of macroevolution and new body plan formation?
Okay, sure. So with that, we can
if the lion and the tigers mate, do the lions and tigers already have fully completed systems that have all of the fundamental requirements for them to exist on a genetic level?
Of course. Nobody denies it. Nobody denies that.
Okay, so if a tiger and a lion mate, what the heck does that have to do with the formation of an entirely new organism?
All right, well...
I'm talking about from a macroevolutionary perspective.
Well, macroevolution is basically speciation. That's what it is.
No, macroevolution in the conversation that we're having is the formation of entirely new functionality body plans.
Okay, sure.
We all know this, and we also all know that evolutionists love to run around and try and create all these gray line, blurry areas and be like, no, man, we're talking about how in the heck did a completely new function, component of life that are required for these different types of life forms to exist. Because when we look at it from a genetic perspective, there's massive amounts of different information that's required. Correct?
Correct. Of course, nobody denies that. Nobody in the right mind would deny
so we can't even explain exactly how a supposedly new gene would form. Correct?
We have ideas, but
we have no proof. Correct?
Correct. I mean,
okay. So the evolutionists run around claiming that our very existence has somehow occurred by something that has not been observed. We can't recreate, we can't test, and we cannot prove. And we also agree that there's all sorts of different highly complex functions that are required in order for, even hypothetically speaking, the new gene to form. And you haven't explained those either. And yet evolutionists such as yourself run around claiming that people like Otangelo are relying on things like irreducible complexity when you can't even explain the fundamental basics of how the information came into being, or even if some of it did exist, how the new, entirely different alternative structure could come into existence.
Great. Well, anyway, with that, that's a really good point to end on. I'm sorry, I am falling asleep, and so I am going to start bailing. John, let's talk through email and let's set up a time to chat, because I am about to collapse.
All right, well, you have a good night, man.
All right, good night, guys. Thank you.